a very special guest that I'm really, really happy and honored to introduce. Mark, how are you? Are you there? Come with me. Come on stage with me. There you go. Mark has been a very, very special energy in the studio. Um, he uh, he shares with me, which I think is one of the most fundamental core traits of being human, which is our capacity to tell stories. And he's a true storyteller in its more purest form. At the end of Baki's design science decade in 1976, at the World Game in Philadelphia, he was 20. And he was there, and he was collaborating and helping and being part of the initial World Games with Medard and Bucky Fuller, and he was lucky enough to be exposed to all these ideas and incredible things that were happening back there that have been the seeds of many of the movements that we're seeing rise today, and many of the ideas that we're kind of like feeding from, and as we walk on the shoulder of giants and trying to redefine them and bring them to new audiences. He has been a fundamental part of this within the studio. Both with his voice and now with his project for the studio called Regenerative Beaming, which I'm pretty sure he'll explain a little bit about. And so, yeah, it's such an honor to have you and your story telling capacities here, and your Eleprocons running around and jumping around us to tell us their secrets.
Thank you. So there's a few things I do need to make a few corrections, because along the way, stories change, right? When we each take something in, there's something may happen to it. And we're only here in the moment, in the now, with the story that we have, but we have the ability to reflect upon it, either direction we want to go, in this kind of omnidirectional kind of ability to communicate that we have. And I do want to say that I was not at the World Game in 1976. My good friend Bob was at the World Game. He was producing it with Bucky. And that's when he met Medard and all the folks, because he fell into Bucky's realm. And then a few years later, I moved in to live with Bob. He was a professor at the local university. And I became immersed in Buckiness. And that's how this story kind of starts in the moment of nowness. And but before I wander too far, because I have a tendency to do that as I ponder, Nico, I'm going to need you, because I'm going to start with an answer, but I want to end with a question, and I may need you to remind me to ask the question, okay? So, Nico, we've been wandering a path together, right? We've been building something together with everybody around us here. People had no idea that we were going to meet. And yet, when you listen carefully and you slow down enough, you can hear this story. That story is not mine to tell. That was what I discovered. I was walking with my friends. Can you feel it? Feel your heart. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? That's a story we need to remember, where to go. And so, Nico, like you the story changes, and that's what happened with the notion that I was at the world game, but no, I wasn't. It was my good friend Bob, and that's this thread that I'm pulling on and holding. But it reminds me of this story that came to me most recently, working with everybody here in the Design Science Studio. And it's like the game of telephone. Suddenly there was all this technology and the ability to share in this way that we do, this beaming that we are. And the most incredible thing came to me. It was that story of being in a library where it was nice and quiet, and I could hear that pulse, but it wasn't mine. It was coming from the shelves. It was coming from the words. It was coming from my friends, all through time. How amazing is that? And you'll have to forgive me if I interrupt myself every once in a while and say, how in the heck did this all happen? How did I get here? How did I find my friends? So beautiful, beaming, right there. You know about the word beam? We've talked a little bit about it. That wordplay that sends us in all sorts of directions. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Nico, is I forgot the librarian's name in Regen era.
His name is Antonio de los Huertos.
Thank you, Antonio, if I may. So, this is what Antonio told me when I was visiting with him, and you'll have to believe me because I was there. I met him, but I have a tendency to forget names. Antonio said, do you remember this when you were a child, how when you played the game telephone and you whispered from one ear to the next? Do you remember? I remember. Antonio said, well, so here's the thing about that imagine you're in your circle with all of your friends and you're whispering from one ear to the other, and that story goes around and everybody starts giggling and you're wondering what's happening to the story. And Antonio says, so now I want you to imagine that's culture. That's time. That's a very long thread that has no beginning and no end. And I want you to imagine now that that story is being told from child to child throughout this long thread, each a frayed knot, spinning it off in every direction. And the story goes around and it comes back to where it started. And the giggling starts from whence it came. So that's not what I said. I did not say divide and conquer. What is this silly story of separation? Where do you think that's going? Listen carefully. I'm going to say it again, from whence it came. Divine and conquer. This is your story to tell. This is what was gifted to me from Antonio in the library of etymology. That's the story I heard. And I had two birds along with me. And as I walked up to the library, one of them was like, look out! And I was like, what? And there was no look in. These two birds have been with me since. They've wandered the library shelves. They've listened carefully to what comes from the sense of these notions, these ideals, these ideas that humanity has carried forth for all of us to share and weave into this notion of a leprosy, this sense of curiosity. Let's go there. All right. Eleprocon, Eleprocon, tell me an age-old secret. Eleprocon, Eleprocon, where do you hide and keep it? You started with the word, this I have heard, and now I intend to seek it. Please come beaming with us and meet all the Eleprocons. And that question, it's camp time. You're a counselor. What's your gig? Come on over, beaming with us. Thank you for the story you provided me.
You're such a beam of light, Mark. Thank you so much. Also, I was sharing a little bit in there of Antonio, which is our official librarian of Regenera. I also want to show you, we just got in news from an amazing article. Somebody was writing in this very important magazine about Regenera. Have you all heard? It's this floating city that appeared from the sky in 2021, and that is here to show us what's possible. So I welcome all of you to get into regenera.city to explore a bit more of the story of Regenera and all the different the different narratives that we're weaving. And we created this precisely for people like you, Mark. So you have a space, a very warm and nourishing space where to develop your narratives and your stories, and where all the art of every artist who has a vision for regeneration within this decade to have a space for co-creation and to exhibit your art and to just hang out and you know, be here with all these characters that we're creating and all these spaces. And you know, you'll meet really amazing people in here, such as Antonio or Ava and Gloria, which welcome you into the city every time you come, and some other really amazing characters.
Can I say something, Nico? Sorry,
Yeah.
I just have to say, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. That's my objective throughout time, is just keep pulling back that curtain. I feel like I'm tangled in the threads and just it's unraveling it right in front of us. But who's behind that curtain? Those that are creating these stories and working on this. I have to tell you, I'm exhibiting in both Topia and New York City and Mora. And those creations didn't come from me. It was because of the interaction through all of you. And in the moment of creation, it's the beauty of being together. And I'm so grateful. Thank you all for this opportunity to do this together for the next 10 years and then some.
Yeah, I think there's something very important within all this that we were commenting when Dakota was showing. I was just mentioning in the chat that they get it. Like, they get that we need to create change through celebration. We need to make this change not by like shaming and showing the bad parts. That's all good. But what we need to do is to inspire the heck out of people and to just create these massive parties and celebrations and art. And it's like, that's how we're going to change. That's how